Hello, I am Alexis Perkins, and horror movies cured my anxiety. Okay, that's hyperbolic, but they definitely help me cope from time to time. And I thought, what an appropriate time to talk about this, as Halloween is like tomorrow. I don't know what day it is anymore. And because we're living through a stressful pandemic, which, strap in, there's a helpful tip for coping with that hidden in this video. Spooky. My anxiety stems from a mix of obsessive and intrusive thoughts, being worried about social situations, your standard cocktail of self-defeating beliefs, all topped off with a fearful cherry that something bad is looming and about to happen, which I've been consistently right about in 2020, but I'm told that's unhelpful confirmation bias, so let's move on. I grew up, i.e. my brain developed, in a stressful environment, to put it clinically. And that kind of flipped a switch on in my brain to always being on high alert. So I've been searching for and collecting ideas and habits and activities that flip that switch off. And can you believe it? Horror movies? Stories that seek to put the viewer on edge turn my high alert switch off. Stay with me. I'm not trying to be edgy. I'm not. You'll see. I will explain. Professionals have some theories about why horror movies can help people with anxiety relax. Because, no, I am not the only one who has been self-medicating with horror films. I did a little research, some reconnaissance, about what psychologists and psychiatrists think of horror movies within the context of anxiety. However, before I get into what the professionals hypothesize, we need to take time for a quick but important disclaimer. Horror films are not a true alternative to seeking medical treatment. Therapy, prescribed medications, self-care, those address the roots of the actual issues, and watching horror movies really just alleviates the symptoms of anxiety. And if you don't like horror movies, like if they petrify you and keep you up at night, this will not help you cope with anything. This is a bad idea for you. Try something else. Maybe take a warm bath with no blood in it. Just some bubbles, maybe some Epsom salts. Disclaimer over. The first movie of just any kind I ever remember watching was a horror movie. I was 2 years old and the movie was Poltergeist. I was obsessed and craved more. So let's review. We've now learned 3 things about me. I love horror. I am an anxious Alexis. Yes, I propose that we use that term instead of the dated nervous Nelly. I think I am the perfect poster child for this alliteration. And 3, where were my parents? Yeah, they didn't really care about what I watched on TV. Or me. I'm kidding. I'm half kidding. Anyways, Poltergeist. I've been using horror movies to regulate my emotions ever since. Whenever I'm feeling stressed, anxious, overwhelmed, I watch a horror movie because a Jordan Peele a day keeps the feels away. A little John Carpenter kills the cares, and James Wan wipes worries away. So like, what happens to your body and your brain when you watch a horror movie? Oh my gosh, I just saw this pumpkin over my shoulder and I thought it was in the viewfinder, I thought it was a person and it freaked me out. So what happens is that horror movies are trying to elicit emotions from you, like fear, suspense, tension, stress, and shock. The more ancient structures of your limbic system are responding as if these emotions are real. Your amygdala senses fear, it can smell it, and it prepares you for more of it. Now, your autonomic nervous system is pumping out hormones like norepinephrine, cortisol, and adrenaline, which in turn is creating a physiological response, like your pupils dilating, your heart racing, your muscles tensing. You're entering into a fight or flight response, but you're in a completely safe, controlled environment. And the smarter parts of your brain know that because you're able to practice disentanglement. Your conscious perception processes the illusion for what it is. It's a lot like taking a ride on a roller coaster. Thrilling, but you know you're completely strapped in. Which brings us to our first theory from the professionals over at one of my favorite websites, Psychology Today. One of their explanations for why people with anxiety find horror appealing is something they called benign masochism, or hedonic reversal. It's a theory that goes a little like, when you know you're safe, you're in a position to enjoy feelings that you'd normally avoid and perceive as negative. When you're confident you're in no real danger, the physical sensations your body produces in response to negative emotions can actually become pleasurable. Another one of the theories out there is called ordeal simulation hypothesis. It proposes that we can enjoy horrifying stories because they set up a unique opportunity for us to imagine these high-risk, often do-or-die situations and how we'd respond, or what we would do if this were to happen to us in real life. Which kind of dovetails into what a recent study out of the University of Chicago this year found out. They found that because horror fans have a lot of experience subjecting themselves to frightening subject matter, we actually have a lot of practice at regulating our negative emotions, which enables us to confront real scary circumstances with fewer negative impacts to ourselves. And because we've learned how to overcome fear, this study found that we were actually better equipped to cope with things like the uncertainty of living through this pandemic. Like, the skills translate to real world situations. Look, listen, all I'm trying to say is that if you weren't a fan of horror before, maybe you should start now. You don't need to have anxiety. Who knows how long we're going to be doing this? As long as people are wildin', we'll be doing this for a while, so maybe you should watch Evil Dead, you know? It's really good. If nothing else, it's a fun escape that will make you laugh at the same time. Groovy. Just sneezed on my cat. Now she's a wop. Okay, I interrupt this video to show you how cute she's being. Look at her. Hey, Justy. Hey, Justice. Yeah. An older study from 2012 from the University of Westminster found that the thrills horror movies provide can actually temporarily alleviate the physical pain symptoms that accompany anxiety. They found that the spike in adrenaline levels led to an increase of one's basal metabolic rate, which I say really confidently, but I have no idea what that means. But I believe it because I feel it, and it relieves anxiety symptoms. So how about that? You don't need ibuprofen, you need a good gore fest. Did I mention I'm not a doctor? It was obvious, wasn't it? But enough of what the professionals think. This is 2020. Who cares about science? I'm totally kidding. That was just the end of the what the professionals had to say, so please enjoy this awkward transition. Okay, moving on. I found that some horror fans like to think of watching horror movies as a type of exposure therapy. And while I agree that watching horror movies can be really therapeutic, I think it's like a bit of a stretch to call it exposure therapy. Because exposure therapy is far more controlled and way more specific than picking what looks good on Netflix, you know? But I guess you could think of it as like low-grade exposure therapy to just anxiety. For me personally, some of the reasons I find that horror helps me is I really resonate with the ordeal simulation hypothesis. I like to have a plan, be prepared. Not in all aspects of life. I'm a pretty type B, go with the flow kind of gal, actually. But for these worst case scenarios that I really don't need any help imagining, my brain is pretty good at producing them itself. But I like to envision what I would do if something terrible were to happen to me. Like, if someone abducts me, I'm touching all their stuff. My fingerprints are gonna be everywhere. I'm rubbing my butt on everything, picking up all the fiber transfers I can. And when they attack me, I am scratching them anywhere and everywhere, getting all their DNA underneath my fingernails. Like, as upsetting as that sounds, it weirdly comforts me to have a plan. It makes me feel like I'm somewhat in control in this world of chaos. I love how horror movies can make me feel scared when I'm safe in my own home. Like, that's powerful storytelling, you guys. The psychological distance between me and the movie lends itself to creating what can actually be like a really gratifying experience for someone like me, because it creates this voluntary experience wherein I can manage the negative emotions, or I can turn the movie off if it gets too intense. But I know the things in the movie are not happening to me, but with me. These are feelings I would normally dread, but in this context, it's an opportunity to experiment with the management of those feelings. Also, I find that when the movie is over, I feel this huge catharsis, like a giant sigh of relief. It kind of feels like I've dulled my ability to feel on edge. And so I just feel relaxed afterwards. Which reminds me of what Wes Craven once said about horror movies. He said that horror movies don't create fear, they release them. It's kind of like exercise. Like mid-workout, you feel some pain, but afterwards, you feel better than you did before you worked out. I would also equate it to how taking risks makes Leslie Knope feel when she says, "How does taking risks make me feel? Amazing. Tingling sensation throughout my whole body. I feel flushed. My muscles are relaxed, yet I feel awake. Just waves of pleasure." So let me know, do horror movies make you feel better or are you normal? Also, if you have any good horror recommendations, I love all the subgenres. They are all my friends. Let me know because I'm spiraling.